Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. It's a balmy 18 degrees out, so I'm a little chilly. So here we are with Shorty, still just like I bought it outside of, I put a screen, Alpha X headlights, cleaned it up a little bit. Earlier in the year, actually this is probably in 2025, recently I said I'm going to try to do a better job at walking through the build, showing more of the process, the updates, the whys, the hows, my process for this kind of stuff, rather than just show you the finished product like I've, pretty much done historically. So I figured this would be a good option for this truck since I haven't done anything to it. So this is a project truck for me. Whether it's a project vehicle or another vehicle, a lot of people always ask, how do I find vehicles? What do I look for in vehicles? This and that. And it really just depends. This vehicle is much more rare than trying to shop for a third gen Tacoma or something like that. So this vehicle, I was really just looking for one of these that had the criteria, basically four-wheel drive, that fit my budget, cheap. And so I wasn't really looking for the perfect one, because the perfect one would cost over twice as much as this one costs. So I was just looking for one that fit the bill. This one's beat up, banged up a little bit. It's a little higher mileage, 230,000 miles. It does have the 4.7, so theoretically, it'll go for 1 million miles or whatever. So I don't shy away from high mileage vehicles too much. What I do look for in a vehicle, and nice maintenance records are always a plus, but most of the times, especially with higher mileage vehicles, especially with cheaper vehicles, you're not going to get a ton of maintenance. Now, if I could find the rare garage kept, grandma owned, service at the dealer, like perfect, that would be great. But again, that's not always the option. So this one I found, it checked a lot of the boxes that I was looking for. That box being the frame wasn't too rusted out. The frame, actually, the undercarriage is surprisingly good. I have a handful of vehicles with over 200,000 miles. Sometimes I get them locally here in Colorado. Sometimes I fly out and pick them up. Sometimes it's a long drive, whatever. This one was somewhat local to me in Colorado, though it was a 3-hour drive. Thanks, Talon, for the ride. So this was a Colorado car. I don't know really the history of it. I didn't do a Carfax again. I didn't care too much. I just wanted it to be relatively mechanically sound and not be too rusty. Those are my two main things. If the body's beat up a little bit, all of that I don't care about too much, because I'm probably going to beat it up. I'm not buying this to be a show truck or anything like that. But this did have some rust that I'm not crazy about, primarily around the windshield. Don't love it. I may take it to some kind of a body shop. I've done like some minor rust repairs, and I've done a lot of, frame rust stopping and grind it down and put rust reformer on it, that kind of stuff. But around the windshield, I haven't done a lot of. Now, this video, I'm going to outline basically the first mods. We're going to get into it, I think. I think this is going to be the intro to mods, and I just wanted to tee you up. So the other things I don't care too much about are wheels and tires. I typically always change those out to something that is a better fit for me. Now, if you have the opportunity to buy a vehicle that's actually built properly and has all the things that you want in it, that is a great way to save money. If the previous owner built it how you would have built a truck, and you can get that, you'll almost always save money on that, and that is a great option. I don't find those too much, especially if it's kind of an obscure truck like this. So I would have never chosen these wheels. I wouldn't have put these tires on these wheels. These tires are fine, but the wheels mainly are not, and the tires are worn out. So whatever, those are going to go anyway. The lift kit, this was where I just didn't know. I was pretty naive. Well, not naive. I was just uneducated. So this has one of the Brodozer lifts. It has one of the diff drop style lifts. I didn't know fully what they were or what was involved in the installation of them. It was actually a commenter that left me a comment and said, "Oh, that sucks about the lift since they probably cut the cross member." And they did. So that's how this lift is. I'll show you here in a second. So I just saw it here. I looked at the blocks in the rear and the space. I was like, oh yeah, it's just kind of a space to lift. And they dropped some components, and I just have never, I'm not familiar with those lifts. I figured it would all be pretty easily reversible. I didn't really look at it. I was just like, brodozer lift, whatever, and pull that off, put some stock components back on probably, and go to town. So I thought this was like just a 3-inch spacer lift, essentially. It's actually, I believe it's about a 3-inch block in the rear with an add-a-leaf. The front spacer I actually measured, and it's like 5.5 inches. So I think this is a 6-inch lift, actually. I mean, it's very tall. So I think we got a 6-inch lift on here. So I think about the end goal of what I want to do. I don't want a 6-inch lift. I do want big tires. I'm going to put 37s on this truck. Actually, 37. I like 37. Like all my vehicles now are on my Tundra, my Tacoma, my LX 570, my 80 series Lynx. They're all on 37s. I don't know. It's a good number. I like it. This is also going to go on 37s. Whether I'm going to gear it or add lockers or all that other stuff, I don't know. That's down the road probably. But initially, it's just getting the ride height dialed in. I don't want a 6-inch lift, so I'll probably drop that down. I actually have a suspension lift already. It's an Ironman 4x4. They sent out a lift for me, actually for the double cab that I didn't put on, so I'm going to put it on this truck. I'll outline that all in a little bit. But basically, I'm going to lower the truck some and put bigger tires on it. I like to keep my vehicles as low as possible with as big of tires as I can put on them, assuming I have proper clearances and I can still get pretty good articulation out of it. I just like to keep a vehicle low, and I like big tires. I like how they look. I like how they ride. I like how they handle off-road. I like how they handle in the snow. I like how well in the deeper snow. I like that you can air down and smooth things out. I like 37. I like that in the end of the world, I'll have a big stack of 37s that I can swap around from vehicle to vehicle, right? So that is the plan, but let me show you the problem. So these lifts are, like, I understand why they exist, I guess. They drop everything down low. They drop it all lower to try to maintain all of the factory angles on your CVs and your control arms and everything like that. What you get is way reduced clearance. In the middle here, it looks stupid. These are just kind of brodozer show truck type things. And the thing that I didn't know, I just didn't know. You know, you don't know what you don't know, so I didn't know what to look for. And even if I did know it, I still would have got it anyway. What we see there is the frame, the cross member is chopped to allow the drive shaft to go through. So all of these components get dropped. And I think the steering knuckles are changed out. Anyway, I don't know enough about it. Spacer lift, whatever, the leaf springs in the back, that's easy to change to whatever I want. The front will be a little more work. So I'll show you one other thing about what I look for, but not necessarily a deal breaker either here in a second. So if you guys watch the channel, you know I don't have a whole lot of time on my hands these days to knock out a lot of these projects on my own. So I whittle away at some smaller ones here and there. But sometimes I'll just drop a vehicle off and say, have at it. This is what I want you to do, and just pick it up later. So I've been taking vehicles to Running for Tacos. My buddy Twan over there, we have a great working relationship to where he's flexible at the weird things I want to try out that are kind of non-standard. He gets to experiment with some stuff. This one's going to be a bit of a pain. So they have a tech there, actually, Keith, who in a former life apparently installed many of these lifts. So he is intimately familiar with these lifts, and we'll see how intimately familiar he is with undoing them. So the process for that is we're gonna have to find a donor truck that we can essentially hack that chunk of the cross member out, steal some steering knuckles off of, and whatever other components we need, and re-weld them back onto here. Not ideal, but definitely doable and definitely a pain and something that I just didn't really want to tackle. So, all right, well, picked up the donor truck, towed it with the 3rd gen, so that way I can steal some things from it. Running for Tacos is gonna be doing that. I told Twan he should just put some videos out on his channel, because his channel, Running for Tacos, probably would be interested in those types of mods as well. It's not everyone is just buying a brand new Tacoma and bolting some stuff onto it. Some of them require undoing some things from a former life. So that is what's happening with this truck. The other thing is the engine bay is actually really clean as well. Again, this truck, undercarriage and frame and stuff actually in surprisingly good shape. There's just a few things that weren't great. So timing belt with pump right here, it was done in 2013 at 100,000 miles. So I'm at 230,000. So not wildly overdue for it, but I am overdue for probably tensioner as well, timing belt, water pump. So that's the main big maintenance item on these things that you got to do that every 100,000 miles or so, and you'll just keep going. So some maintenance I'll knock out. And then this is really, other than the cross member, this, if you can see it, is the main thing. And mostly up here, mostly up there. It's really weird that the frame, again, is in such good condition. Really, like for a truck that, this isn't a super old truck or a super crazy high mileage truck or anything, but the frame is in surprisingly good shape. But the body has some weird rust stuff. I have no idea how to fix that stuff along the windshield. So maybe I just ignore it, but it's not great. It's pretty bad. So I'll probably try and fix that, because I want to keep this vehicle for a while. I want to keep it in the fleet for a while. I don't think I'll ever get it to 1,000,000 miles just because I have too many vehicles and I don't drive that much. But this is one that I think I'm gonna try and keep in the old stable for a long time. This will be, as the family changes and evolves and whatnot, and the other vehicles change and evolve, this is one I just kind of want to keep in my back pocket for a long time. So I may want to invest in trying to fix those rust things. But all that to say, I may not get to any of the mods. I may save that for another video and just keep this kind of short and sweet. All that to say, even after all of that, I still do think this was a pretty good deal. For somebody that was just gonna just drive it, not change anything, it was a great deal. For me, who's gonna change a lot of things, it was less of a great deal. So I'm sitting here, I'm gonna move forward just because I don't have patience and I don't have time to shop and go find, like, I won't find another one of these local I mean, I might, but probably I'd have to get it shipped or fly out and pick it up somewhere else, and I would certainly pay more, but would it be better? The answer to that is probably yes. Like, I should probably sell this and start over with one that is a little closer to what I need, but I would be spending at least double. So it'll cost less for me to get this into the shape I want it to be than the trouble of finding another one. So anyway, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna stick with this one, see it through, and I'll outline the progression of that here on the channel. I didn't know what this video was gonna be when I started filming it. So I talked a lot more than I intended to, which is almost always the case on this channel. So this video will probably just be a, hey, what I look for in a vehicle, the thought process I go through, the pros and cons of buying one of the cheaper vehicles. You buy a cheaper one and then you have more of a, so I bought this thing for $7,500. Say my total budget was $15,000. That means I have $7,500 for modifications to get it really how I want it to be. Versus if I bought a cherry one of these for $15,000 is a very realistic, like pretty good condition on these trucks. You get a cherry one for $20,000 or more, but you get a pretty good one at $15,000 and that's it. I would just have a bone stock truck, which again, not horrible, but not what I was looking for. So buying the cheaper truck, having more money for modifications, it's what I chose. So that is my thought process. That's a little update on Shorty. People have been loving this truck. I've been loving this truck. So there'll be plenty more content, and it will change quite a bit from how it sits now. But again, how it sits now is kind of cool, other than the weird lift, which I've also noticed my turning, when I turn full lock, it seems to kind of bind up a little bit. My tires kind of, so I don't know if that's from this weird lift and the changing out of the steering knuckles. So hopefully once I revert all that back, my steering's a little more dialed. Anyway, that's the update on Shorty, status update, and yeah, so stay tuned for more. Until next time, take care.